Breaking news. Nissan just dropped an industry-shaking bombshell that no one saw coming. Prices are plummeting, yes, plummeting, and it's sending shockwave through the entire auto world. What caused this sudden collapse? Is it a desperate move or a genius play that could flip the market on its head? And how will Ford, Toyota, and Tesla respond to this aggressive strike? Stay tuned, because what Nissan just did could change how we buy cars forever. Nissan's bold pricing strategy exposed why they just shattered industry norms. In a move that has left the entire automotive industry reeling, Nissan has unleashed a pricing strategy so aggressive, it's being called the most disruptive action since Tesla's early EV dominance. Just days ago, Nissan slashed prices across several of its top-selling models, including the Altima, Rogue, and the all-electric Aria, by thousands of dollars. But this isn't just a temporary rebate or seasonal discount. Industry insiders are calling it a structural reset, signaling that Nissan is done playing by the old rules of markup-laden car sales and bloated dealer profits. Instead, they've opted to go for volume dominance. And in doing so, they've blindsided rivals still clinging to inflated MSRPs and backlogged inventory. Behind the scenes, analysts believe this bold shift was born out of necessity. Nissan has been struggling to regain footing in key markets like North America, where competition has become brutally fierce and EV adoption is accelerating rapidly. Sales have lagged in recent quarters, and with a wave of Chinese EVs threatening to undercut legacy automakers on price, Nissan's leadership saw the writing on the wall. Rather than wait for the inevitable market crash, they've decided to trigger it themselves by pricing cars near cost, or in some cases, possibly even below cost. They've not only undercut the competition, but also cornered car buyers who are desperate for affordability in a time of record inflation and tightening credit. What's even more shocking is how direct and unapologetic Nissan has been about its intentions. In a recent press conference, Nissan's global COO bluntly stated that the era of price padding is over. The company is shifting focus to long-term customer loyalty, EV leadership, and lean manufacturing, with plans to scale back dealership inventories and push for online direct-to-consumer models. Nissan isn't just changing prices. They're attempting to change the way we buy cars altogether. This has sent panic through boardrooms at Toyota, Ford, Stellantis, and even Hyundai. Their pricing models, dealer networks, and production strategies now face an existential threat. Will they follow suit and spark a full-blown price war? Or will they hold their ground and risk losing massive market share? As consumers rush to Nissan dealerships and competitors scramble to react, one thing is clear. Nissan has shattered the status quo, and the aftershocks are only just beginning. The trigger behind the price collapse, what Nissan did and why it's a game-changer. The chaos Nissan has unleashed didn't happen in a vacuum. The company's decision to slash prices wasn't just a marketing tactic. It was a calculated trigger designed to force a reckoning across the global auto industry. Internally, Nissan has been quietly preparing for this moment for over a year. Sources close to the company reveal that their leadership team had grown increasingly frustrated watching competitors hike prices while consumers were pushed out of the market entirely. With interest rates soaring and new vehicle affordability collapsing for the average buyer, Nissan saw an opening, and they took it. Not only to gain market share, but to redefine value in a saturated, overpriced industry. The most immediate catalyst was Nissan's under-the-radar restructuring of its supply chain and production lines. By aggressively localizing parts manufacturing, cutting back on bloated logistics costs, and leaning into more scalable, modular vehicle platforms, Nissan was able to lower production costs faster than nearly any other legacy automaker. This gave them a rare advantage: the ability to drop prices without completely torching profit margins. They didn't just cut prices because they could. They did it because they had engineered their business to do so. But the boldest move of all? Nissan has begun bypassing traditional dealership markups by rolling out a semi-direct-to-consumer model in key pilot markets like California, Texas, and parts of Europe. By cutting out dealer bloat, they're not only saving customers thousands, they're sending a direct message to the dealership industry: evolve or die. That's what's terrifying competitors. Nissan isn't playing the old game with new rules. They've changed the game entirely. And now, the ripple effects are accelerating. Within 72 hours of Nissan's announcement, rumors began swirling that other automakers were holding emergency meetings. Ford and GM reportedly called high-level internal sessions to evaluate pricing strategy exposure. Hyundai and Kia are monitoring Nissan sales response hour by hour. Meanwhile, Tesla, once the price-cutting king, is suddenly facing pressure from below as the Aria and Leaf undercut the Model 3 and Y in price and federal tax credit eligibility. What Nissan has done isn't just a pricing decision, it's a strategic detonation. They've exposed the fragility of an entire industry that's leaned too long on inflated costs and brand premiums. In doing so, they've given consumers a glimpse of what fair pricing can actually look like. And now, it may be impossible to go back. Shockwaves across the industry, how Ford, GM, and Toyota are scrambling to respond. As Nissan's bombshell pricing move continues to ripple through the market, major automakers are now caught in a high-stakes scramble to recalibrate. Ford, GM, and Toyota, three of the biggest automotive giants in the world, have been jolted into defensive mode, with internal sources suggesting that urgent cost model evaluations and contingency strategies are being deployed behind closed doors. Nissan has forced their hand. The question now is no longer if they should respond, but how fast they can without imploding their own profitability structures. Ford, in particular, is under intense pressure. The company has spent the last 2 years betting big on electrification, launching the F-150 Lightning, Mustang Mach-E, and a whole new division, Ford Model E, dedicated to EVs. But those vehicles come with a high price tag, and Nissan's unexpected price war is now threatening to strip away Ford's momentum in the affordable EV segment. According to internal reports leaked from Dearborn, Ford is already reviewing its supply chain contracts and fast-tracking talks with battery partners to find room for price reductions. But there's a problem. Ford is heavily reliant on dealer-based sales, and unlike Nissan's streamlined approach, many of its vehicles still carry markups well above MSRP. Unless Ford restructures its dealership model or absorbs massive losses, it may not be able to compete on price, at least not quickly. GM isn't faring much better. With the Chevrolet Bolt discontinued and the Ultium EV rollout experiencing delays and cost overruns, GM's electrification strategy has already been under scrutiny. Now, Nissan's cuts have put GM in a painful spotlight. The automaker had hoped to position the Equinox EV as a budget-friendly entry into the electric space, but even before launch, Nissan has moved the goalposts. The Aria's lower price tag and quicker availability have already drawn thousands of pre-orders away from competitors. GM's leadership is now reportedly reconsidering the Equinox EV's pricing tiers, and some industry insiders believe emergency revisions to the launch strategy are imminent. Toyota, the world's largest automaker, is perhaps the most shaken, not by the pricing alone, but by what it signals about market expectations. Toyota has long taken a cautious approach to EVs, focusing instead on hybrids like the Prius and RAV4. But Nissan's move threatens to expose Toyota as overly conservative in a market that's now demanding bold, affordable electric options. Sources in Tokyo indicate that Toyota is accelerating plans to retool its EV platform, but development time and existing production contracts may delay any meaningful response until 2026. In the meantime, their hybrid models, though efficient, may start to look overpriced in a world where Nissan is offering fully electric alternatives at the same price point or lower. Across the board, panic is setting in. Automakers that once held pricing power are now being forced to fight on Nissan's terms. And as more consumers learn about the price drops and flock to Nissan showrooms, competitors are losing both time and leverage. What Nissan has ignited isn't just a price war. It's a full-blown identity crisis for the auto industry. The giants are no longer dictating the rules. They're reacting. And in an industry built on long production cycles and fragile supply chains, that kind of reaction time could mean the difference between survival and collapse, consumer frenzy, or financial suicide. Experts weigh in on Nissan's risky gamble. With Nissan's unprecedented price cuts now in full swing, analysts and auto experts are sharply divided. Is this a stroke of genius that will revolutionize car buying, or a reckless gamble that could bring the company to its knees? On the surface, the public response appears overwhelmingly positive. Consumers are swarming dealerships and online platforms, with reports of waitlists forming for newly discounted models like the Rogue, Altima, and especially the Aria EV. Social media is ablaze with praise for Nissan's affordability-first approach and for many buyers priced out of the market by rising interest rates. Nissan's move feels like a lifeline. But beneath the surface, experts are asking a harder question. How long can Nissan sustain this? According to industry financial analysts, the company is walking a razor's edge. While Nissan has managed to cut costs through supply chain optimization and localized manufacturing, offering cars at or near cost leaves little room for error. One major recall, a downturn in consumer demand, or a spike in material costs could wipe out already razor-thin margins. Some skeptics warn that Nissan might be sacrificing long-term profitability for short-term market share, a gamble that could backfire if competitors strike back with deeper pockets and stronger brand loyalty. Former automotive executive and industry consultant Mark Linford put it bluntly in a recent Bloomberg interview. What Nissan's doing is either visionary or suicidal. There's no middle ground. They're betting everything on reshaping consumer expectations before the industry can catch up. If it works, they'll be heroes. If it doesn't, they could end up bankrupting themselves in the process. This echoes the 2008 to 2009 era, when GM and Chrysler collapsed under the weight of outdated pricing models, high production costs, and inflexible systems. Nissan is trying to leap over those pitfalls, but the risk remains very real. However, Nissan's leadership insists this is not desperation, it's evolution. COO Ashwani Gupta recently stated, "We're not burning down the house. We're rebuilding it from the ground up. The automotive world has changed. It's time our prices did too." In that sense, Nissan is betting on a new business model entirely. One less reliant on bloated margins and more focused on volume, efficiency, and long-term customer retention. They're not just selling cars, they're trying to sell a new way of buying cars. The gamble may also extend beyond the showroom. Nissan is expected to pair these price drops with aggressive financing options, online sales channels, and even subscription-based ownership programs in select markets. These innovations could help cushion the financial blow, but they also require massive upfront investment and come with their own risks. Still, Nissan seems willing to take those chances. The question is, will the rest of the industry follow, or will they wait for Nissan to bleed out first? For now, the company is enjoying a rare surge of public goodwill and media buzz. But in boardrooms and on Wall Street, the mood is far less optimistic. Nissan has pushed its chips to the center of the table. Whether a winning hand or a bluff that cost them everything, only time will tell. Is this the end of dealership markups? What Nissan's move means for car buyers. Nissan's aggressive price cuts have done more than just shock the auto industry. They've struck at the very heart of a system that many car buyers have grown to resent: dealership markups. For years, customers have faced inflated prices, market adjustments, and hidden fees tacked on by dealers, often adding thousands to the cost of a new vehicle. But Nissan's latest strategy may finally be the blow that brings this system crashing down. By slashing MSRPs and pushing toward a leaner, more transparent pricing model, Nissan is bypassing the gamesmanship that has defined the car buying experience for decades. In some regions, they've even begun testing a direct-to-consumer sales approach, selling vehicles online at fixed, no-haggle prices with delivery options similar to Tesla's model. This puts enormous pressure on traditional dealerships, many of which rely on markups and add-ons to maintain profitability. Now, they're being forced to explain to customers why a Nissan dealership in Texas is charging $2,000 more for the same car being advertised online at factory price. Spoiler, they can't. The result? Consumers are catching on, and fast. Forums, Reddit threads, and YouTube videos have exploded with buyers sharing their Nissan purchasing experiences, many saying they've been offered deals they never thought possible again. The affordability drought, fueled by post-pandemic supply issues and rising interest rates, suddenly looks like it's breaking. And it's Nissan leading the charge, tearing down the barrier between automakers and buyers that dealerships have long stood behind. Other automakers are now caught in a difficult position. If they maintain high MSRPs and allow dealerships to tack on steep markups, they risk looking greedy and out of touch in the face of Nissan's transparency. If they try to follow Nissan's lead, they'll have to confront their dealership networks, many of which wield powerful legal and political influence. States like Michigan and Texas have laws that make it difficult for manufacturers to sell directly to consumers. Nissan, however, seems willing to challenge that model, especially in global markets where direct sales are more feasible. This shift doesn't just benefit buyers in the short term. It could signal a long-term transformation in how vehicles are sold. If Nissan's experiment succeeds, it may create a domino effect that forces the entire industry to rethink pricing, dealership relationships, and consumer trust. Imagine buying a car the same way you buy a phone or a laptop. Simple, fast, and without needing to argue over floor mats or documentation fees. Still, resistance is inevitable. Dealership associations have already voiced concern, warning that cutting them out could hurt local economies and customer service quality. But public opinion is overwhelmingly in favor of reform. For many, Nissan isn't just lowering prices, they're standing up for buyers who've been squeezed for far too long. So, is this the end of dealership markups? It's too early to say for sure, but for the first time in years, car buyers feel like they have the upper hand. Nissan has pulled the curtain back on the system, and now it may be impossible for the industry to hide behind it again. Electric war ignites. How this price drop affects the EV market and Tesla's dominance. Nissan's dramatic price cuts haven't just shaken up the gas-powered segment. They've thrown a Molotov cocktail straight into the electric vehicle EV battlefield. And at the center of the blast zone is none other than Tesla. For years, Tesla has reigned supreme in the EV market, commanding high margins, setting the narrative on innovation, and, more recently, slashing prices to fend off growing competition. But now, Nissan's move has flipped the board entirely. The EV war has entered a new phase, one where price, not just technology, will determine survival. The Nissan Ariya, their flagship EV SUV, is now priced significantly below rivals like the Tesla Model Y, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, and even a Hyundai Ioniq 5. With federal tax credits applied, the Ariya's final price can drop below $35,000 in some U.S. markets, making it one of the most competitively priced EVs in its class. And this isn't a bare-bones model, either. Nissan is offering high-value trims with solid range, premium interiors, and advanced driver assist tech. It's a direct challenge to Tesla, and Elon Musk knows it. Within days of Nissan's announcement, Tesla began quietly adjusting Model Y pricing on select configurations in certain regions, an early sign of concern. But here's the twist. Nissan's EV strategy doesn't depend on being flashy. It depends on being accessible. While Tesla courts tech enthusiasts and higher-income early adopters, Nissan is targeting the middle market, the everyday family buyer who's looking to go electric without going broke. That's a demographic that has been largely ignored in the EV space until now. And if Nissan can seize that opportunity, they could unlock a massive pool of untapped demand. This also presents a serious threat to legacy automakers like GM and Ford, who are still in the midst of ramping up EV production. Many of their EVs remain priced well above $40,000, and their delivery timelines are stretched due to supply chain kinks and battery sourcing challenges. Nissan, by contrast, has focused on streamlined manufacturing and local battery production to keep costs under control. Their EVs are rolling off the line now, not in 12 or 18 months. Meanwhile, Chinese EV giants like BYD and NIO are watching closely. They've long been expected to crash into Western markets with ultra-cheap EVs, but Nissan may have just beat them to it. With global reach, an established reputation, and a price-first strategy, Nissan could fortify its position in Europe, Asia, and North America before Chinese manufacturers can gain serious traction. As for Tesla, its image as the price-cutting disruptor is beginning to crack, with competitors like Nissan undercutting them while delivering real value and federal tax eligibility. Tesla's grip on the affordable EV narrative is slipping. And while Tesla still holds a significant technological edge in software, range, and charging infrastructure, public perception is beginning to shift. Buyers are now asking, why should I pay $5,000 to $10,000 more for a Tesla when the Ariya gives me everything I need and more for less? The EV war is no longer just about innovation or range. It's about accessibility, affordability, and volume. Nissan just lit the fuse, and the battle lines are redrawn. The race to dominate the electric future isn't about who builds the best EV anymore. It's about who can put one in everyone's driveway. Inside Nissan's strategy room, leaked internal memos reveal their master plan. As the industry reels from Nissan's pricing shockwave, new information is beginning to surface that paints a far clearer and far more calculated picture of what really drove this radical move. Leaked internal documents and insider reports suggest that Nissan's price drop wasn't an impulsive reaction to market conditions. It was a coordinated, multi-phase plan that has been in the works for over 18 months. And if these leaks are accurate, what we've seen so far is just the opening act in a much bigger disruption campaign. According to insiders, Nissan executives internally dubbed the initiative Project Reclaim. a strategic effort aimed at restoring the company's dominance in the global automotive market, especially in the US, where Nissan's market share has steadily eroded over the past decade. The plan was built on a brutal, data-driven truth. Nissan could no longer afford to compete on brand prestige or legacy. It had to win on one thing: value, undeniable, in-your-face value that even the most skeptical buyer couldn't ignore. One leaked slide from an internal presentation outlines the strategy in chillingly precise terms. Phase 1, market shock / MSRPs across key models to ignite a consumer rush and grab headlines. Phase 2, volume domination. Flood the market with supply by streamlining manufacturing and bypassing traditional dealer bottlenecks. Phase 3, ecosystem expansion. Use the growing customer base to cross-sell digital services, in-house financing, subscriptions, and extended EV charging networks. Phase 4, competitive collapse. Force rival automakers to choose between matching Nissan's prices and taking a profit hit, or losing market share and credibility. But perhaps the most startling revelation? Nissan isn't just focused on cars. The memos detail a push toward what's being called a mobility-as-a-platform future, where owning a Nissan vehicle becomes a gateway to an entire ecosystem of services: insurance, maintenance subscriptions, software updates, and even in-car commerce. In other words, Nissan doesn't just want to sell cars. They want to own the customer relationship, end-to-end. Insiders claim the company has already begun building proprietary platforms to support these goals, including AI-based pricing algorithms, dynamic leasing models, and EV range optimization tools, all developed to feed real-time consumer data back to Nissan strategy teams. This level of vertical integration is something even Ford and GM have struggled to achieve. Nissan is betting that by controlling both the product and the post-sale experience, it can build a long-term revenue model that far outweighs the short-term losses from undercutting competitors. These revelations have caused a stir across the auto world. Analysts are now revisiting Nissan's balance sheets and manufacturing forecasts, trying to understand how the company managed to mobilize this kind of pivot so quickly. Investors, too, are starting to take notice. Some see the beginnings of a comeback story, while others warn of a dangerous overreach that could burn through cash reserves if the plan falters.